Maya Chen had always been unremarkable. At least, that's what everyone thought as she walked through the halls of Stellar Academy, the most prestigious military training school in the galaxy. Her dark hair was always tied back in a simple ponytail. Her uniform was regulation standard, and she never spoke unless spoken to. While her classmates from dozens of different alien species showed off their natural abilities, the Krathari with their incredible strength, the Villani with their psychic powers, the Zorax with their lightning-fast reflexes, Maya simply existed in the background. The Academy housed students from across the known galaxy, each species contributing their finest young minds to the Galactic Defense Initiative. It was a symbol of unity, where the best and brightest learned to work together against the growing threat of the Devourers, a mysterious alien force that had been consuming entire star systems on the outer rim. Professor Vexitar, a tall, blue-skinned Altarian with 4 arms, was conducting his usual lecture on interspecies combat tactics when the emergency alert came through. The holographic display in the center of the classroom flickered to life, showing Admiral Cross's stern face. The Tyrillian Admiral's scaled features were grim as he addressed the Academy. "Students and faculty, we have a situation developing on the mining colony of Kepler 442b. A small Devourer scout force has broken through our outer defenses. This is not a drill. All senior students report to deployment stations immediately. Junior students are to remain in secure areas until further notice." The classroom erupted in excited chatter. This was what they had all been training for, though no one expected it to come so soon. Maya watched as her classmates, all seniors except for her, began filing out with barely contained enthusiasm. She was only a second-year student, having started late due to the complex application process for humans. "Chen," Professor Vexitar called out as she began to follow the others. "Junior students remain here." Maya nodded and took her seat, watching through the massive viewing windows as transport ships began launching from the Academy's docking bays. She could see her classmates boarding the vessels, their various forms of excitement evident even from this distance. Zephyr, a proud Krathari warrior in training, was flexing his massive arms. Silaria, a graceful Villani whose telepathic abilities were legendary among the students, moved with serene confidence. Hours passed. Maya remained in the secure area with the other junior students, a mix of nervous energy and boredom filling the air. Some played holographic games, others studied, but Maya found herself drawn to the news feeds streaming in from the conflict zone. The initial reports were optimistic. The senior students had arrived at Kepler 442b and were successfully evacuating civilians while the Academy's instructors engaged the Devourer scouts. But as the hours wore on, the tone of the reports began to change. Heavy casualties reported among evacuation teams. Devourer forces larger than initially estimated. Request for immediate reinforcement. By the 8th hour, even the junior students could sense something was wrong. The usual confident demeanor of the remaining faculty had given way to hushed conversations and worried glances at their communication devices. Maya couldn't stand it anymore. While the other students huddled together, sharing nervous theories about what was happening, she slipped away from the group. She had always been good at moving unnoticed, a skill that had served her well in avoiding attention throughout her life. The Academy's corridors were eerily quiet as she made her way toward the communications center. Her footsteps echoed softly on the polished floors, past displays showing the achievements of former students who had gone on to become heroes of the Galactic Defense Initiative. She had always wondered if she would ever belong among them. The communications center was restricted to senior staff. But Maya had discovered during her first year that the ventilation system provided an excellent view of the main operations room. It was a discovery she had never shared with anyone, not even her roommate. Crawling through the narrow service tunnel, she positioned herself at a grate that overlooked the center's main floor. What she saw made her blood run cold. The holographic displays showed the battle on Kepler 442b, and it was not going well. The mining colony was a hellscape of twisted metal and burning structures. Devourer creatures, nightmarish beings that seemed to absorb light itself, were overwhelming the defenders. The evacuation ships that had left with such hope were now scattered across the battlefield, some destroyed, others desperately trying to escape the planet's gravity well. Admiral Cross was arguing with several other senior officers, his scaled fists clenched in frustration. "We need to pull them back now! The colony is lost!" "Sir," one of the communication officers called out, her voice tight with stress. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Evacuation Ship 7. They're trapped in the colony's mining sector with approximately 200 civilian refugees." The main display shifted to show the interior of a damaged transport ship. Maya gasped when she recognized the face on screen. It was Zephyr, her Krathari classmate. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. "Academy Command. This is Student Commander Zephyr requesting immediate extraction. We're surrounded by devourer forces. Our ship's engines are damaged, and we have critical injuries among the civilians. Estimate may be 20 minutes before they breach our position." The silence in the command center was deafening. Maya could see the faces of the officers, each one knowing what she was beginning to understand. There were no available rescue ships. The other evacuation vessels were either destroyed or fleeing the system. The instructors were fighting for their own lives against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. Admiral Cross's voice was heavy when he spoke. "Zephyr, hold your position. We're working on options." But Maya could see the truth in the Admiral's eyes. There were no options. Evacuation Ship 7, with her classmates and 200 innocent civilians, was going to die. "Sir," another officer spoke up, "there is one possibility. We have a single-pilot reconnaissance vessel in Bay 7. It's fast enough to reach them, but it's a suicide mission," Admiral Cross finished. "That ship has no weapons, minimal shielding. Whoever pilots it would have to navigate through the devourer swarm, dock with a damaged vessel, and somehow get everyone out. The pilot wouldn't survive." The room fell silent again. Maya watched as the officers stared at their displays, each unwilling to voice what they all knew. They needed a volunteer for a suicide mission, and they were asking students and instructors to die. Maya closed her eyes and thought about her life. She had always been ordinary, unremarkable, forgettable. Her parents back on Earth had been supportive, but not particularly proud when she was accepted to Stellar Academy. After all, humans were a relatively new species to the galactic community, and their contributions were often overlooked in favor of more established races with obvious special abilities. She thought about Zephyr, who had once helped her with her combat training when she was struggling to keep up with the other students. He had never made her feel inferior despite his incredible strength. She thought about Silaria, who had shared her lunch when Maya had forgotten to eat, sensing her hunger through her telepathic abilities. They were going to die, along with 200 innocent people, because no one was willing to take a risk on a mission with no chance of survival. Maya made her decision. Quietly, she crawled back through the ventilation system and dropped down into an empty corridor. Her heart was pounding as she made her way to Bay 7, but her steps were steady. For the first time in her life, she knew exactly what she needed to do. Bay 7 was deserted, automated systems humming quietly in the vast space. The reconnaissance vessel sat in the center of the bay like a sleeping predator. It was sleek and fast, built for speed rather than combat. Perfect for what she had in mind. Maya had logged more simulator hours than almost any other student at the academy. While her classmates had focused on their natural abilities, she had spent countless hours learning every ship system, every navigation protocol, every emergency procedure. It was the only area where she had ever excelled, though no one had ever paid much attention to it. The ship's systems recognized her academy credentials, and allowed her access. As she settled into the pilot's seat, her hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. The engines hummed to life, and she began her pre-flight checks with the same methodical approach she brought to everything else. "Bay 7 to launch control," came a voice over the communication system. "We show an unauthorized engine startup. Please respond." Maya hesitated for just a moment before opening the communication channel. "Launch control, this is student Maya Chen requesting emergency departure clearance." "Negative, Chen. You are not authorized for departure. Power down immediately and report to—" Maya closed the channel and engaged the launch sequence. The bay doors began to open, revealing the star field beyond. As the ship lifted off, she could hear the emergency alarms beginning to sound throughout the academy. She set course for Kepler 442b, pushing the engines to their maximum safe capacity. The journey would take 6 hours at this speed. 6 hours to figure out how to save her classmates and somehow survive the impossible. As the academy fell away behind her, Maya Chen, unremarkable, ordinary, forgettable Maya Chen, flew alone into the darkness toward a battle that would change everything. The journey through hyperspace gave Maya time to think, but thinking was the last thing she wanted to do. Every logical analysis of her situation led to the same conclusion. She was flying toward certain death. The reconnaissance vessel had no weapons, minimal shields, and was designed for stealth observation, not rescue operations in active combat zones. But Maya had spent her entire life being logical, being careful, being unremarkable. Today, logic wasn't enough. She used the travel time to study everything she could about the Kepler 442b system. The mining colony was built into a series of underground caverns, connected by a network of tunnels that had been excavated over decades. The surface was largely barren, dotted with mining equipment and the occasional atmospheric processor. Most importantly, she studied the Devourer attack patterns from the available data. The Devourers were unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. They seemed to absorb energy rather than simply destroying it, growing stronger as they consumed technology, organic matter, and even light itself. Their ships were massive, organic-looking constructs that pulsed with dark energy. But they had patterns, weaknesses that the Academy's tactical computers had begun to identify. They were drawn to high-energy signatures, weapons fire, ship engines, even concentrated life signs. But they seemed less interested in low-power systems, treating them as background noise until they became active threats. Maya's reconnaissance ship, with its minimal energy footprint, might be able to slip past them if she was careful. As she dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442b system, the scope of the disaster became clear. The space around the colony was filled with debris, destroyed ships, scattered mining equipment, and the ominous shapes of Devourer vessels moving like sharks through the wreckage. Maya powered down all non-essential systems, leaving only life support and minimal thrusters active. The ship drifted forward on momentum, its energy signature barely above background radiation. Through the viewports, she could see the Devourer ships more clearly now, twisted amalgamations of metal and organic matter that seemed to shift and flow like living things. Her communication system crackled to life with scattered transmissions from the battle. Most were distress calls or tactical communications from the surviving Academy forces, but she heard Zephyr's voice cutting through the static. "Academy Command, Evacuation Ship 7. We're down to 15 minutes before they break through our barricades. The civilians are starting to panic, and we're running low on power for the defensive barriers." Maya adjusted her trajectory, using the planet's gravity well to slingshot around to the colony's location. The mining facility was built into the side of a massive crater, its entrance tunnels glowing faintly with emergency lighting. She could see Evacuation Ship 7 on her sensors. It was deeper in the tunnel system, surrounded by the heat signatures of Devourer creatures. The tactical situation was worse than she had imagined. The Devourers had essentially trapped the evacuation ship in a dead-end tunnel, and they were slowly working their way through the defensive barriers. Every few minutes, Maya could see energy flashes as the creatures tested the defenses. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. Maya had always been good at puzzles, at finding solutions that others missed. It was probably the only thing that had gotten her into the academy, despite her unremarkable test scores. Now, as she studied the tactical display, she began to see possibilities. The Devourers were concentrated around the evacuation ship, but they had left the main tunnel system relatively unguarded. If she could create a distraction, something to draw them away from Ship 7, she might be able to get close enough to execute a rescue. But what kind of distraction could a single, unarmed reconnaissance ship create? Maya looked at her fuel reserves and engine specifications, and a crazy idea began to form. Reconnaissance ships were designed to be fast and maneuverable, with oversized engines for their mass. If she overloaded the fusion reactor and vented the plasma directly through the engine nozzles, she could create a massive energy signature, like a beacon that would draw every devourer in the area. It would also destroy her ship and kill her in the process, but not immediately. She would have maybe 5 minutes between overloading the reactor and the inevitable explosion. 5 minutes to get close to Ship 7, transfer the refugees, and get them to safety. The math was brutal. Even if everything went perfectly, there was no way she could save everyone and survive herself. But maybe, just maybe, she could save them. Maya began preparing the modifications to her ship's systems. She rerouted the plasma conduits, overrode the safety protocols, and began charging the fusion reactor beyond its design limits. Her hands were steady as she worked, muscle memory from countless hours of emergency simulations guiding her actions. As she worked, she opened a communication channel to Evacuation Ship 7. Zephyr, this is Maya Chen. I'm in a reconnaissance vessel approximately 10 kilometers from your position. The surprise in her classmate's voice was evident even through the static. Maya, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be back at the academy. That's not important right now. I need you to listen carefully. In approximately 3 minutes, I'm going to create a distraction that will draw the Devourers away from your position. When that happens, you need to get your engines online and make for the main tunnel exit as fast as possible. Maya? What kind of distraction? Your ship doesn't have any weapons? Just trust me, Zephyr. When you see a bright light, move immediately. Don't wait, don't hesitate. The window will be very small. She closed the channel before he could argue further. Maya finished her preparations and took one last look at the tactical display. The Devourer creatures were still clustered around Ship 7's position, their dark forms pulsing with absorbed energy. Maya activated the overloaded fusion reactor. The effect was immediate. Her ship's energy signature blazed across every sensor in the system, a brilliant beacon of plasma and radiation that cut through space like a knife. Through her viewports, she could see the Devourer ships beginning to turn toward her position, drawn by the massive energy output. "Come on," she whispered, pushing her engines to maximum power as she dove toward the planet's surface. "Come get me." The Devourers took the bait. Maya watched on her sensors as they peeled away from the mining colony, their organic ships flowing through space like a dark tide rushing toward her ship. She led them on a wild chase through the asteroid field that surrounded the planet, using every trick she had learned in the simulators. Her ship was faster than the Devourer vessels, but not by much, and the overloaded reactor was making her systems increasingly unstable. Plasma began venting from her engine manifolds, leaving a bright trail behind her that the creatures followed like bloodhounds. "Ship 7 to Chen," Zephyr's voice crackled over the communication system. "We're moving. How did you—" "Maya, your energy signature is off the charts. What did you do to your ship?" "Nothing that can't be fixed," Maya lied, watching her reactor temperature climb into the red zone. "Just get those civilians out of here." She could see Ship 7 on her sensors now, moving rapidly through the tunnel system toward the surface. The evacuation vessel was damaged but functional, and Maya could count the life signs aboard, 237 souls including her classmates. The devourer creatures were closing in on her position. Her ship shuddered as their energy weapons began to find their range, and she could feel the hull plating beginning to buckle under the assault. But she had done what she came to do. Ship 7 was clear of the mining complex and accelerating toward orbit. "Maya!" Another voice came over the communication system. Silaria, the Villani telepath. "I can sense your intentions. Don't do this. There has to be another way." But there wasn't another way, and they all knew it. Maya's reactor was past the point of no return, building toward a fusion explosion that would take out everything within several kilometers, including the devourer ships that were now clustered around her position. "Tell everyone back at the academy," Maya said, her voice calm despite the chaos erupting around her ship. "Tell them that the ordinary girl did something extraordinary." She cut the communication channel and focused on flying. Her ship was falling apart around her, systems failing one by one as the overloaded reactor poured deadly radiation through the hull. But she was still alive, still flying, still leading the devourers away from the innocents they had tried to save. Maya thought about her parents, who had always supported her even when she couldn't explain why she wanted to join the academy. She thought about her instructors, who had been patient with her slow progress. She thought about her classmates, who were now safely escaping because she had made a choice to be more than ordinary. The reactor reached critical mass, and Maya Chen's ship became a small sun, burning bright against the darkness of space. The explosion consumed the devourer vessels that had been pursuing her, their organic hulls unable to absorb the pure fury of an uncontrolled fusion reaction. In the silence that followed, Evacuation Ship 7 limped toward the edge of the system, carrying its precious cargo of survivors. Zephyr stared at the expanding cloud of plasma and debris where Maya's ship had been, his massive hands clenched into fists. "She saved us all," he said quietly. But Silaria, whose telepathic abilities allowed her to sense things that others missed, was staring at her instruments with a puzzled expression. "No," she said slowly, "I don't think this is over." 3 days later, Stellar Academy was in chaos. The rescue of Evacuation Ship 7 had become the talk of the entire galaxy, but not for the reasons Maya would have expected. Instead of mourning a heroic sacrifice, the Academy was buzzing with a mystery that no one could explain. The footage had started appearing within hours of the battle. Scattered recordings from various sources, mining equipment on Kepler 442b, sensor logs from surviving ships, even personal devices carried by the refugees. Each piece of video showed the same impossible thing: Maya Chen, somehow alive in space, fighting devourer creatures with her bare hands. Admiral Cross stood in the Academy's main briefing room, surrounded by faculty members and senior officers from across the galaxy. The holographic display showed a compilation of the footage, and each viewing made it more surreal. In the videos, Maya floated in the vacuum of space without a suit, her Academy uniform somehow intact despite the lethal environment. Her movements were fluid and purposeful as she engaged devourer creatures that dwarfed her human form. When she struck them, they disintegrated, their dark energy absorbed into her body until she seemed to glow with inner light. "This is impossible," Professor Vextar stated, his forearms crossed in disbelief. "Humans cannot survive in space. No species can fight devourers in hand-to-hand combat. These recordings must be falsified." "The technical analysis shows no signs of manipulation," replied Dr. Seklan, the Academy's chief scientist. "Multiple independent sources, different recording methods, various angles. If this is fake, it's beyond our ability to detect." Admiral Cross studied the footage for the 100th time. In one particular sequence, Maya was shown intercepting a Devourer assault ship that had been pursuing Evacuation Ship 7. She moved through space like she was swimming, closing the distance to the massive vessel and then simply reaching out to touch its hull. The ship imploded instantly, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained. "Sir," interrupted Captain Veloth, the Academy's head of security. "We've confirmed that Student Chen's reconnaissance vessel was completely destroyed in the fusion explosion. No escape pods were deployed, no emergency beacons activated. According to every scientific principle we understand, she died in that explosion. And yet here she is on video, very much alive," Admiral Cross muttered. "Where is she now?" "Unknown, sir. After the last recorded sighting near the planet's orbital zone, she simply disappeared. No energy signature, no trace. It's like she vanished." The room fell silent as they continued to watch the impossible footage. Maya moved through the recordings with an otherworldly grace. Her ordinary appearance somehow transformed into something mythical. She dispatched Devourer creatures with casual efficiency, each touch or strike causing them to collapse into themselves. "Sir," Dr. Seklan spoke up hesitantly. "There is one theory that might explain this, though it sounds like science fiction." Admiral Cross gestured for him to continue. "Humans are one of the few species that developed naturally on a death world, a planet with extreme environmental pressures. Earth has massive gravity wells, deadly weather patterns, geological instability, and a biosphere that's essentially trying to kill everything on it at all times. Most life-bearing worlds are far more hospitable. We're aware of human resilience, Doctor. It's why they were accepted into the Galactic Defense Initiative despite their technological limitations. But, sir, what if that resilience goes deeper than we thought? What if humans have dormant capabilities that only emerge under extreme stress? The theoretical framework exists. Quantum biology suggests that consciousness might interact with fundamental forces in ways we don't fully understand." Professor Vextar scoffed. "You're suggesting that stress activated some kind of supernatural human ability? That's mythology, not science." "Is it?" Dr. Seklan pulled up another display. "Look at human mythology and folklore, stories of individuals gaining incredible powers during moments of extreme crisis. Mothers lifting vehicles to save their children, soldiers surviving impossible injuries through sheer willpower, warriors who seemed invincible in battle. What if these weren't exaggerations?" The room erupted in arguments, but Admiral Cross remained focused on the footage. There was something about Maya's expression in the videos that troubled him. She didn't look surprised by her abilities. She looked focused, determined, like someone who had discovered what she was meant to do. "Sir!" A communications officer burst into the room. "Emergency transmission from the Outer Rim. The Devourer main fleet has been spotted moving toward the Centauri system. It's massive. Over 1,000 ships." The arguments stopped immediately. The Centauri system contained 12 inhabited worlds and over 50 billion people. It was also the location of the Galactic Defense Initiative's primary shipyards. If the Devourers took Centauri, the war would effectively be over. "Deploy everything we have," Admiral Cross ordered. "Contact all member worlds. This is the fight we've been preparing for." "Sir," the communications officer continued nervously, "there's more. Long-range sensors are detecting an energy signature moving parallel to the Devourer fleet. The readings match the anomalous signatures we recorded during the Kepler incident." Admiral Cross felt his blood turn cold. "Show me." The main display shifted to show the sensor readouts from the Outer Rim monitoring stations. Sure enough, there was a small but distinctive energy signature keeping pace with the massive Devourer armada. It was moving through space at impossible speeds, unassisted by any visible propulsion system. "It's her," Admiral Cross said quietly. "She's following them." The next 18 hours were a blur of preparation and desperate coordination. Every ship in the Galactic Defense Initiative was being mobilized for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The Academy itself was being evacuated, with students and faculty relocated to secure positions throughout the galaxy. But Maya's classmates refused to leave. Zephyr, Silaria, and the other survivors of the Kepler incident had formed an impromptu coalition, demanding to be included in the defense of Centauri. Their argument was simple. They were the only ones who had witnessed Maya's transformation firsthand, and they believed their presence might be crucial to understanding what was happening. "We owe her our lives," Zephyr argued during a heated meeting with Admiral Cross. "If she's out there fighting alone, we should be with her." "Your students," the Admiral replied. "This battle will determine the fate of the galaxy. I can't risk—" "With respect, sir," Silaria interrupted. "I can still sense her, faintly, but she's there. She's afraid, sir, not of the Devourers, but of herself, of what she's becoming. She needs to know she's not alone." Admiral Cross studied the young Villani's face. Telepathic species were notoriously accurate about emotional states, and if Silaria was right, then Maya was struggling with more than just the Devourer threat. "Very well," he decided, "but you'll be observers only. No direct combat engagement." The battle for the Centauri system began at dawn on the 4th day after Maya's disappearance. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of locusts, their organic ships blotting out the stars around the inhabited worlds. The Galactic Defense Initiative met them with everything they had. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all united in desperate defense of their homes. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Devourer creatures swarmed through space, their energy absorption abilities making traditional weapons less effective with each passing minute. Ships died by the hundreds as the organic vessels consumed their energy and added it to their own dark power. Maya's former classmates watched from the bridge of a command vessel, their faces grim as they witnessed the systematic destruction of the fleet they had trained to join. The Devourers were winning, and everyone knew it. "There!" Silaria suddenly pointed at the tactical display. "Grid 77 Alpha! That energy signature!" On the screen, a small point of light was moving through the battlefield at incredible speed. As they watched, it intercepted a group of Devourer ships that were attacking a crippled defense vessel. The contact was brief but decisive. Each Devourer ship simply ceased to exist upon contact with the moving light. "It's her," Zephyr whispered. "But how is she doing that?" Admiral Cross had the same question. Reports were flooding in from across the battlefield of a mysterious force destroying Devourer vessels with impossible efficiency. Pilots reported seeing a human figure moving through space unprotected, but the descriptions varied wildly. Some said she was glowing with inner fire. Others claimed she moved like liquid starlight. A few swore she was larger than life, somehow expanded beyond normal human proportions. The turning point came when the Devourer command ship, a massive construct that dwarfed even the largest defense vessels, entered the battle. Its appearance on the field caused immediate panic among the defending forces. This was the creature that had been consuming entire star systems, and its energy signature was unlike anything they had encountered. The command ship began draining power from everything around it, friendly and enemy vessels alike. Defense ships found their engines failing as their energy was siphoned away. Even the stars themselves seemed to dim in its presence. That's when Maya appeared. She materialized directly in front of the command ship, a tiny human figure facing a vessel the size of a small moon. For a moment, the entire battlefield seemed to pause, both sides watching this impossible confrontation. Then Maya moved. What happened next would be debated by scholars for generations. Some said she simply touched the command ship and it collapsed. Others claimed she became one with the vessel, absorbing its dark energy into herself. Still others insisted that she somehow reversed the creature's energy-draining process, turning its own power against it. What everyone agreed on was the result. The Devourer command ship imploded with such violence that the shockwave disabled every other Devourer vessel in the system. Their organic forms writhed and collapsed, their connection to their power source severed by whatever Maya had done. In the silence that followed, Maya floated alone in space, surrounded by the debris of the enemy fleet. But she was changing. The ordinary human form that her classmates remembered was becoming something else, larger, brighter, more essential. She was becoming pure energy, pure possibility. Silaria gasped, her telepathic abilities allowing her to sense what was happening. "She's burning out. The power! It's too much for her human form to contain. Can we help her?" Zephyr demanded. "I don't know." Silaria was crying now, tears streaming down her face. She's trying to hold on to who she was, but the energy wants to return to the source. She's fighting to stay herself. On the main display, Maya's form was becoming increasingly ethereal, her human appearance fading as she transformed into something beyond physical existence. But just before she completely dissolved into energy, she turned toward their ship. Across the vast distance of space, somehow, she looked directly at her former classmates. Silaria's eyes widened. She says thank you for believing an ordinary girl could do something extraordinary." Maya Chen, the unremarkable student who had once walked unnoticed through the halls of Stellar Academy, smiled one last time. Then she became light itself, her consciousness spreading out to touch every world in the galaxy. The energy that had been trapped within her human form returned to the cosmos, but it carried with it something new. The memory of what it meant to be human, to choose sacrifice over safety, to protect others at the cost of yourself. The Devourer threat ended that day, not through superior weapons or tactics, but through the simple human decision of one ordinary girl to be extraordinary when it mattered most. Years later, when new students walked through the halls of the rebuilt Stellar Academy, they would pass a simple memorial plaque. It bore no grand titles or elaborate descriptions. It simply read, "Maya Chen. She looked ordinary until the galaxy needed her not to be." And in the depths of space sometimes, pilots reported seeing a brief flash of light when they were in trouble, a momentary presence that seemed to whisper that help was on the way. Scientists dismissed these reports as psychological phenomena, stress-induced hallucinations brought on by the isolation of deep space travel. But Silaria, now an instructor at the academy, knew better. Maya had become something beyond human understanding, but she had never stopped being human where it counted. She was still out there, still watching, still protecting the ordinary people of the galaxy who needed someone extraordinary to believe in. The girl who had been unremarkable had become legend, and the legend lived on in every act of courage performed by those who remembered her story.